Hi, this is James with Epilog. Thanks for joining us today. So, I've been with Epilog now for over 25 years. And in that time, I've had a lot of experience playing with different materials and settings and graphic types and answering customer questions. And one of the questions I get the most often is how do I get a really good, consistent engraving on glass? Well, we've heard your question. What we've done today is we've taken a lot of the things I've learned over the years from industry experts, from my own experience, from YouTube channels. We're putting all that together into one place. We'll start out by taking a look at what makes a good glass engraving, some of the basics of glass engraving, what's actually happening when we engrave the glass. Then we'll move on to more specific cases, such as masking and showing you the results of different types of masking. We'll also look at photo engraving on glass, and even we'll take a very tapered glass and I'll show you how to set up that file for a nice engraving around the taper. Let's go ahead and get started. So, why is laser etching glass popular? Why are you here today? The reasons really come down to you need to take a look at the two different ways that you can etch glass. One is sandblasting, the other is laser etching with a CO2 laser like Epilog's. Now, sandblasting is very popular for a number of reasons. And the main reason is going to come down to that you get a really nice depth to the engraving. So here's an example from one of our customers, DNS Awards. They do sandblasting as well as laser engraving, and they've got a really beautiful, even, consistent mark here that they've color filled. Now, the pros of sandblasting are you do get that very smooth, even finish across all types of glass. Also, there's no heat stress. So with the laser, you're applying heat. With the sandblaster, you're hitting that glass with sand very quickly, so you don't get that same heat fractures. It works on all types of glass, so you can even use it on tempered glass, which is resistant to the laser, and you can get that nice deep etching. Some of the cons are that it requires a stencil or a mask to be able to actually create that engraving area. So you're actually cutting out a stencil that you place over it, and wherever the stencil is not located, you can hit that with the sand. Your detail is going to be a little bit more limited in a lot of ways because that's really requires you to have a very detailed mask to be able to get that detailed etching. It also requires either a blasting cabinet or booth within your facility to be able to do that. Now, laser engraving glass is going to be a little different look in that you're getting a frosted look on the glass. So here's a really nice frosted etched glass wine bottle. So it's a nice, even, consistent look across the entire thing. And you just get a really nice engraving. The pros of this is that it's computer controlled. So there's no masking required as far as where you're going to be engraving on it. You might mask the glass, which we'll get to in a little bit, but that's going to be a little bit different process. Since it's computer controlled, you can use any graphic you want. So it basically works like a printer. So I'm choosing my logo, my name, anything that I want, and I'm just printing it over to the laser. It's also very fast for short runs. So if I've got a number of glasses I want to do, I can move from one to the next very quickly and not have to worry about creating that mask on each one. And then also, it allows for customization very easily because if I was customizing each glass, I'd have to create a different mask for each glass on that sandblaster. The cons to laser etching glass is it can be much more difficult to get a nice, even finish on it uh, because glass reacts very differently with different lasers. Also, you can get flaking if it's not properly engraved, and you're more limited in the types of glass you can engrave. So, lead crystals can be more difficult. Tempered glass doesn't work well, and we'll get into that in a bit as well. So really it comes down to the popularity for CO2 laser etching glass is that throughput. You're able to move quickly between products, you can engrave them very quickly, and I can move on to that next job and just keep taking orders. Now, many of the customers that specialize in glass engraving offer both sandblasting and laser etching with different pricing on each. It allows them to engrave a wider range of glasses for their customers and offer those two different levels of service based on the customer's budget and the look that they're going for, and even the type of glass they're using. We also have many customers like DNS Awards that actually will use the laser to create the mask for the sandblaster. So they'll use a laser safe vinyl product to cut out the mask and then put it inside of the sandblasting cabinet and actually do the sandblasting right there. So, what is an example of a really good glass engraving? Now, we showed one earlier, but this is another wine bottle that I've used. And these dark wine bottles work really well for showing off the detail that you're getting there and how nice and frosted it is. We even have very large areas of engraving, and it's smooth. I can't feel any flakes, or you just feel a small etch on it, and that's it. Now, here's an example of a not as nice engraving. And you'll see there that there's some flaking. Some parts aren't just engraved evenly, especially on the A there. When I feel it, I can actually feel some flakes. Now, this is what we're going to try to avoid, and we're going to show you the tips for how I avoid this in several different ways. Now, to really understand how to get a good engraving, we need to understand what's happening when we're laser engraving the glass. So, when the laser hits the glass, it heats the surface very quickly, causing a thermal stress. This rapid heating and cooling creates microfractures in the glass or flakes on the surface. Now, we can control the characteristics of the graphic itself and how the heat's dispersed on the glass to achieve a smooth frosted appearance. So, one of the things that I often do when I'm engraving glass is I'm going to actually mask the glass first. And what we're trying to do here is actually disperse some of that heat that's there. We're going to test out a couple different methods and show you what the different results are. Now, I know a lot of you that are already doing glass engraving are familiar with this, but this is a good basic to start out with, especially if you're just getting into glass engraving, to understand what the different results that you're going to get from masking are. So the first one I'm going to do is I've got this craft beer logo, and I'm not going to optimize the graphic at all. I'm just going to run it on the laser and see how it comes out. The second logo, I'm actually going to come in here and I'll select part of the black and select all the black in that graphic. And I'm going to actually turn that into 80% black. So it's got more of a gray to it. And the reason we're going to do this one is we're actually separating the dots. Now, when you print something that's gray, it's basically printing those dots separated out more so than if it's black, where they're all touching each other and right up close. That's going to help to disperse the heat when we actually engrave it. Now, I'm going to do this in a couple different ways. I'll do the engraving with no optimization, one with just the graphic edited a little bit there, and then I'll do two different types of masking as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the epilogue and how we actually send jobs to it, right now we're working in CorelDRAW, but I could do this in Illustrator, Inkscape, anything I want to prepare my graphic, and I'm just going to print it to the laser dashboard. So I'll go ahead and select this one first. I'll go ahead and print that. And I'm choosing the Epilog engraver for my printer. Hit print. Now this allows you to use whatever graphic software you're most comfortable with. It makes it really nice for people that like to design in Illustrator, or they like to design in Inkscape, or whatever program it is. It just makes it really easy to interact with the laser. So now that it's over here, What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on my rotary attachment. And I've got my rim style rotary in there. We have two different types of rotaries. One is rim style, where it actually sits on rollers and turns a piece as it engraves. We also have a 3-jot chuck, which will actually hold the piece and turn it very accurately. Now, for most glass engraving, I find the rim style is great to use because it's very quick to move between glasses. It's probably what most of our glass engravers are using, so that's what we're going to be showing mostly today. I'm going to choose a centering point. So I'm going to use center engraving. So that'll allow me at the laser to actually choose my center point on the glass and say, that's my home position. And I'll engrave the graphic around it. And as you can see here, once we turned on the rotary attachment, it turns off the camera system. Now the camera system isn't really useful for this type of file setup, but that center engraving makes it super easy. And then I'm just going to import my material settings. So I'll do glass engraving. And I'm just going to use the suggested settings. This is an 80-watt Fusion Edge 24. So 500 DPI, 70 speed, 100% power. I'll keep dithering standard on this one. And I'll go ahead and hit print, and that'll send that over the laser. Now I'll go ahead and send over my second graphic as well. And I'm just going to turn this the same way, 90 degrees, because the glass is going to be sitting on the rotary device sideways. So basically we need to engrave the graphic 90 degrees turned. So I'll go ahead and print that over to the laser dashboard as well. Now, one of the nice things with the Epilog is I can send multiple files to the laser and just jump between them. So I don't have to run back to the computer when I want to send my next one. And this one I'll just call Craft Beer Gray, so I know the difference there. Now I'm going to adjust my settings a little bit based on the fact that we're dispersing the dots with this gray graphic pattern. So I'll go ahead and use that 70% speed, 100% power, the same we're using in the other one, but 300 DPI. And then I'm going to come down here to dithering. And there's a number of dithering patterns actually built into the laser dashboard. What these are going to do is they're going to randomize those dots. So even though we're going to a lower DPI, we won't see dot, 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 dot as it engraves across. It's going to randomize those, so we'll get that nice frosted appearance. Now, I like to use Jarvis or Stucky. They're both relatively similar in their dithering patterns and both work well. So I'll choose Stucky there. Now I'll come back over to my advanced tab, turn on that rotary again, and choose center engraving for this one as well. And since we're using center engraving, it doesn't matter where on the page this is located. It's going to all be based off that center position we set. So I can just hit print. Now to install the rotary attachment, it's very easy to do. I've got my table all set up here with the machine actually turned off. I'm just going to put this at the back corner of the table. Now I've got this plug here and the corresponding piece right here, so I'm just going to plug that right in over here. And now I can turn on the system and it'll recognize the rotary is installed. Now to actually set up my glass on the rotary, this is very simple to do. I can take this and I can move this back and forth by pushing in on these clamps. Then I'm just going to place the glass right up at the edge there with my roller right on top. I can move this back over. And now I'll just scissor lift that glass up. And I'll use a small level just to make sure that engraving area is nice and level. Now at the dashboard, I can actually move the head over using the joystick. So I can put my manual focus gauge on, set that right on there, and I can raise or lower the table until that's just touching. And the final thing I need to do is there's a small red dot pointer I'm using here. It's a little hard to see on the glass on screen, but I'm just going to put that right in the center of my engraving area. And then I can push centering point. And that's going to be my center point that it engraves around. Now if I actually do trace at the display panel, I can use that red dot and see exactly where my graphic's going to engrave, which is nice. So I'm happy with that, so we'll shut the door and start engraving. So this is the display panel on the laser, and you can see that we've got our jobs here, both the black and the gray. Actually, I've got another job in here, which is one I permanently saved. So you can save any of your jobs so that when you turn on the machine, it's always there. So something you run a lot, so that's nice to have. Go ahead and select the black one. And then when I'm ready to start, I'll just hit play to start the engraving. So I'm going to start the engraving on the black one, and then I'll move to the gray one and do that one immediately after. So before we move on, let's take a look at the results we've gotten so far. So this is on the glass that I did completely black graphic. You can already see that there's some flaking there. It feels relatively smooth, but I can feel a little bit of flaking. It actually did a lot better job than I expected with those settings, but I know we can just do a lot better than that. The second one is the one that we grayscaled 80%. You can just see it's a really nice, even engraving, even without masking. I've got a nice look to the entire piece, and that would definitely be something I could sell easily. The third one I'm going to show is just a sample I did to show you what that dithering pattern does. So this is that same 80% grayscale, but without a dithering, and you can see the actual dots. So adding that dithering pattern that's in the Epilog dashboard just makes it a really nice, even effect across the entire piece. So next we're going to go into the actual masking process that you can use to get a better engraving, and we're going to take a look and see what kind of results we get. So when we're adding a mask, we're actually adding something over the top of the glass that we're engraving to create a barrier where it'll actually keep that glass a little bit cooler as it actually gets microfractured by the laser. Now there's multiple ways that people do this, from wet paper towels to dish soap to vinyl transfer film. So I'm going to show you two of the methods I use, and one is a very quick one, and that is that dish soap. So all I'm going to do is apply a little dish soap on here and just rub that into the area I'm going to engrave. And that's just going to help keep that glass cool in that area. And it's a very quick way to mask.
So another method is to use a transfer mask. So what you're looking for is a medium to medium high tack, which is going to be how sticky it is, how easy it is to remove after engraving. Um, you're definitely looking for one that's laser safe. True vinyls are not laser safe and may contain polyvinyl chloride. If you're not sure, ask the manufacturer for a material safety data sheet and look for polyvinyl chloride as one of the ingredients. So all I have to do with this is I'll just cut off a small section that's about the size of the piece I'm going to be engraving. And I can just apply that right to the glass. And you want that to be smooth, so just get out any bubbles, but that's pretty easy with a small engraving area like this. So let's go to the laser and try these out next. So for the glass with the soap on it, what I'm going to do, just center it in that area again, and I'm going to use the same settings I did with the grayscaled graphic, because that should still help us out with this engraving as well. Now we'll do the one with the mask on it. And I'm actually going to adjust my settings right here at the dashboard. So I'm going to reduce the power or the speed by 10% from 70% to 60%, just to make sure we get through that mask well. And that's extra dwell time just is going to give it a little bit more power. Now we're ready to actually clean off the glasses. So I've got my soap on this one that I'm just going to go ahead and rinse off. And for the mask glass, I'll go ahead and just peel this off and then use some water and a little bit of a scrub brush to get rid of all that extra weeded graphic there. And that's why we use the medium tack, so that it's easy to remove. So now let's take a look at the actual engraving. This is the one we did with the soap mask, and it is really nice. The engraving quality is nice and smooth throughout. I don't feel any flaking. Really happy with that. We'd take a look at the one that we use the transfer mask on. This looks even just a little bit better. Now, there's very little difference there, but there is definitely a little bit of a nicer, crisper edge to everything, and looks really great.
The decisions you make before you even take your first engraving job can really make the difference between a highly profitable one and one that's only mildly so. For example, time. Time per glass that we're going to engrave can be definitely affected by the masking techniques that we tested out here today. When we saw that huge difference, it was between a full black engraved graphic and one that was 80% gray with that stucky dithering pattern in the laser dashboard. Now, that was a huge difference in my mind and definitely worth it because it only takes a few minutes to actually change your graphic into gray. Now, when we actually looked at the soap technique and the transfer film technique, those did make a difference. But I had to look really, really closely. Now, when we're looking at it on camera, right up next to the camera, you're going to see a little bit of difference. But to the naked eye, most people won't see a big difference there. So it's always a balancing act of how much time it's going to take per piece to not only engrave them, but also to mask them and unmask them and clean them. How I look at it is if I'm doing a one of a kind piece, then I'm definitely going to mask it with that transfer tape. It just makes a big difference in that the glass might be one that I've never used before. It's something someone's brought into me, and I just want to be that little bit extra cautious. So it's going to help out there. If I'm doing 100 glasses and it's one I've already engraved before, or I have an extra glass that I can actually test settings on, it's probably not worth that extra cleaning time and weeding time to do that transfer tape. My preferred method in this kind of job is to do the grayscale of the graphic and use Stucky, but I'll also add that soap over the top if I have time on it because it only takes a few seconds to put that on and to take it off. It really comes down to how much time it takes per glass so you can continue to make money on your jobs on your laser. So, another aspect to take into consideration to be successful is the type of glass that you're going to engrave. Now, there's a number of types of glass out there that engrave very well, and that includes soda lime glass, which is that inexpensive glassware you'll see a lot of times in restaurant shops, in online stores. Frosted glass engraves very well because you're removing that frosted layer. And annealed glass, which is used on picture frames and awards and different things like that. Now, some glasses that do not engrave as well include tempered glass, doesn't accept that heat for a nice crisp engraving, lead crystal, which will chip more easily when engraved, and borosilicate, which is Pyrex. The best glass to engrave is actually the cheapest glass. And the reason why this is true includes it's a less dense material than a high quality glass, which has a more uniform molecular structure. Now, the softness helps you create that frosted appearance that we're always going for with the laser. There's also more impurities, which make the glass more susceptible to that microfracturing, which gives it that whiter, more vibrant engraving. Now, glasses like borosilicate, the Pyrex, and lead crystal include elements like boron or lead, which improve either the clarity of the glass or the durability or the brilliance. And these don't help with good engraving. The lead crystal reflects and diffuses the heat, which creates that chipping that we can see. And the borosilicate resists thermal expansion, so it doesn't frost easily when engraved. Now, can you engrave these? Yeah, you definitely can, but your results won't necessarily be as good. Now, here's a piece of lead crystal that I've engraved recently, and it actually engraved beautifully. I got a really nice engraving on that by masking it first. So it really depends on the glassware. So if you've got a lead crystal you want to be able to engrave, it's best to have that pre-shopped and figure out which ones work the best for you. Now, when looking at where to actually source your glassware, there's a couple great options that I use a lot. One is discount mugs. Uh, they have a wide range of glassware, and they do offer a lot of times full color logos or laser engraving on it, but you can also purchase the blanks. So, since this is something they're already offering laser engraving on, you know that it's probably a glass that you'll be able to have great success with. Another one is Ket Home. They've got a wide range of glassware well there, and a lot of that's soda lime glass, so it's going to engrave well. Really, any restaurant supply store is going to be a great option for you. So definitely check out the different suppliers that are out there and find different glasses that you can offer your customers, knowing that you're already going to get good results with them. Now, you might even have a restaurant supply store in your town that you can go to and check out the different glasses. They might even sell you an individual one to test out first, knowing that you're going to buy a large quantity down the road. Now, we all know the quality of the artwork you receive really helps to determine how good something engraves. Now, on this one, we're going to be engraving on a tapered beer glass. We've received this logo and we've already turned it 80% gray. Now, if I leave the logo as it is, there's going to be a few things that you notice here. One is that the engraving just doesn't come out very well. And the reason that is we've got white text inside of that really bold outline there. It just kind of loses a lot of the detail. And there's some ways we can actually optimize this graphic to look a lot better, but we're going to have to edit the graphic a little bit. Another thing you'll notice is since we're doing this on a tapered glass, it creates a kind of a tapering to the graphic as well. So it looks oblong and out of shape. It also looks a lot narrower than the logo that we have. So I'm going to show you not only how to optimize the graphic, but how to prepare it for a tapered glass. So here we have the graphic in Illustrator. I'm going to go ahead and ungroup that. And the first thing I'm going to do is change this section here on the outline. I want to do just an outline around it and get rid of this fill. To do that, I'm going to grab first all of that text and turn that 80% gray. Now I'm going to grab that outer area there, and I'm going to give it a gray outline and no fill. Now I can just adjust that stroke width a little bit, however deep I want that, however thick I want that line to be. That looks good. I'll remove that in that area there. Now I'm going to add an outline around this text down here, so it's got a white outline around it. And the inside of this area, I'm going to actually turn white. So that's already a lot better as far as how it's going to engrave. It doesn't have those big bold areas with text inside. The text stands out. Now, if you're going to edit someone's logo, you definitely want to get their approval to do that. But if you explain to them why it needs to be edited a little bit and that you can make it still look really great, that makes a big difference. So next we need to prepare for the tapering, the graphic for that tapering on the cup. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll measure the cup both at the top and the bottom and find how thick those are. Using calipers, I can see that's 2.68. At the bottom, it's 1.8. So I'll draw a line right here. And make that the 2.68 inches in width. Oops. I'll make that 2.68 inches in width. And I'll draw another one. And do that 1.82 inches. Now to make sure that they're aligned to each other, just come to my line panel, select there. Now they've aligned their center points. And finally, I know I've got this at the 0 point, my other line. I want that 7.5 inches from the 0 point, and that's because my glass is 7.5 inches long. And I'm going to go ahead and give these a thicker stroke so I can see. So now that I've done that, then I'm going to select my line tool, and I will just create a line here and a line there connecting them. Now these lines that we've done are going to show us the taper angle of the glass itself, and are going to help us to set the taper on our graphic, our logo that we're going to engrave. So we've got our graphic that's all optimized. So we're going to go ahead and take that, and I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees. Now I need to center that on the glass. So I'm going to select the bottom of the glass and then the logo. I'll say align to key object, which is that first item we selected, and align the centers. And I want that to be 1.5 inches off the top. So we'll go ahead and set, I'll choose that top area there so that we are aligning that to 1.5 inches. And I'll set the X to 1.5. Now I want the graphic to be 4 inches from top to bottom here. So we'll go ahead and set the width to 4 inches. Now, one thing that we did notice there was that the on our original engraving, a lot of times oval logos are going to look squished, and that's an optical illusion when you're looking at that glass, really. But increasing that by about 10% over the height really makes a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and change the height of the graphic here by 10%. So right now it's 4.29 inches. Multiply that by 1.1, I get 4.719 inches for that. And that'll help with that illusion that it's shrinking that graphic up. Now, this is a pretty big logo for this glass, but it really shows off that tapering effect and everything else well. Next thing I'm going to do is draw a box the same size as my logo. And I'll set that to just an outline. So I'm going to select both of the tapered sides of the glass. We actually want to reverse this. So I'm going to go to Object, Transform, Reflect. So now we've got the opposite tapers. This is how we want to adjust our graphic. So I'm going to take that top one, I'm going to take it right to that top left corner of the glass, of our logo square, and do the same thing on the other one. Now I'm going to select that and the logo, and I'll come down to the free transform tool and choose this third one, which is going to let me grab that corner right there and just pull that straight up until it's just touching the line to match our taper. Once that's done, I'll just go ahead and select all my glass, move that down, and get rid of my outline. So now we've adjusted the graphic for the taper of that glass. So we'll go ahead and just move everything else off the page. And I'll print that over to the laser dashboard. I've got Epilog Engraver chosen and choose print. Now, once that's here, I'll just come over to my advanced tab, turn on my rotary, and I'm going to set my centering point to top left. So that's the point when we set the centering point, it's going to go off of. I'll set it to 300 dots per inch. And we'll do 70% speed, 100% power with Stucky, and go ahead and print that to the laser.
So here at the laser, we're just going to go ahead and clip that into place under the roller. Make sure that's sitting on the rollers on the other side. Check that it's level, so that looks good. And finally, just check my focus. The final thing I need to do is set my home position. So we want to make sure that the top of the item is on 1.5 inches down, just like we do on the taper on the other one. So I'll just go ahead and use my ruler, move that over to 1.5 inches. And set that as my centering point. We're ready to start engraving. And there we go. So now our graphic has been optimized for the shape of the glass and to improve that logo as well. And it just comes out really nice.
So for this next sample, we're going to actually take a look at photo engraving, and I'm going to use Photoshop for this. And the reason I'm going to do this is a method I learned several years ago from a YouTube channel, Happy Gilder. I find that you get a lot of control over how much detail you get in the image on glass, and it's my favorite way to do this. There's a number of steps, but I find that if you've done it a few times, it just kind of becomes second nature. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my channels. And this is where it's broken out between your red, green, and blue channel. Now, the blues are going to be very dark, red's very light, and green's right down that middle. And this is what we want to actually work with. So I'm going to select only the green channel. I'll come to Image, Calculations. Now you can see it got a lot darker now. And the reason it's doing that is I'm overlaying two copies of that green channel. Now I can play around with this a little bit with the opacity between the two. I'm going to take that down to about 80%. I find that's a nice middle range that does a good job. And for the result, I'm going to choose New Document. So it's going to open this in a new document. I'll click OK. So now you can see that we only have one channel. It's just alpha 1. I want to change that to gray. So I'm going to go Image, Mode, Grayscale. Now to show you why we're doing this with the channels, I'm going to go to Window, Arrange, to Up. So this one, I'm going to come in here, I'll select the whole RGB and just go to Image, Mode, Grayscale. So if we had just grayscaled the image, you can see it's pretty flat down here. You don't get the same dimension and those wrinkles and the details of the shirt just really pop because of how we've gone through that channels with the overlay before we grayscaled. So we'll close up that original graphic. Next thing I'm going to do is remove my background. So with the photo selected, you can see right below the photo is Remove Background. So I'll click that. And Photoshop's going to decide what is the subject matter of the photo, which are going to be the people, and it's going to automatically remove that background. You can clean this up afterwards, but I find it does a really nice job doing this. You can see there it's gotten all the details of the hair and everything that we're going to need for a nice photo engraving. So if I go back to my layers, here's the original layer, and here's a mask that's created over the top of it. So if I turn off that mask, you can see the background still there. I just want to permanently remove that background, so I'm going to right click on the mask, and I'm going to apply layer mask. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a copy of that layer. So I'll just right click, duplicate layer. Now up above the layer, you're going to see normal. Now these are filters you can apply to the layer, and we want to come down. We're going to choose screen. And you can see when we do that, how much lighter it's gotten. Now we want to lighten up just the dark parts of the image. So to do that, we're going to go into channels. And on that gray channel, I'm going to hold down the control key and click on the channel itself. And you can see from the little marching ants here that it's selected part of the graphic. And what it's selected is everything from white up to mid-level gray. Since we want to lighten up just the dark portions of the graphic, I'm actually going to go select inverse. So now we've got from mid-level gray up to black. Come over my layer, and I'm going to choose this third icon down below layers, and that's going to be your mask icon. So now it's just lightened up. It's created that screen effect on just the dark portions of the graphic. I'm going to double click on that layer now, and that's going to open up my layer styles. In this top one, blending options, you can see blend if gray. So it's going to choose how much to blend between these two layers. And if I had just grabbed this on the right side and moved it over, you can see the blend isn't very even. It's kind of blotchy. So instead, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and that'll separate out just that left side of that arrow. I can bring that all the way down and create a really nice blending effect between those two layers. Click OK. Now I'm going to click the little hamburger on the right side and choose Merge Visible. So I brought those two layers down into one single layer. So now I can go in and I can change my levels. So image, adjust levels. And this is where you're basically looking for, I like to bring in the left side just a little bit if there's a large increase on the dark side. I bring that in a little bit. And on the right side, I'm going to do the same thing. Click OK. Now the next thing I want to do is create a stamp of this basically. So we're going to pull all those details out even stronger. So I'm going to duplicate that layer again. Now just to that duplicate layer, I'm going to image, adjust, invert. So I'm selecting basically, this is going to let me just see that dark part of the image. And in the filters, change from normal to vivid light. So now it's basically showing you all that mid-level gray across it, but we'll change that up. Go to Filter, Blur, Surface Blur. Now you can see it's created kind of a stamp version of that image. So I usually you can change your radius for how much it affects things. I usually like right around 15 or so. And my level, right around 150, 160. I think this looks really good right here, so 174. You don't have to be exact on this. This is you're still going to get that same effect. Click OK. Now with that same layer selected, we already have vivid light filtering it, so I need to make a copy of this layer that just incorporates that vivid light so we can add another filter on top of it. So I'm going to hold down Alt, Control, Shift, E and delete that middle layer with the vivid light. So now I can apply another filter to that layer. I'm going to choose overlay. So you can see here just how much detail we're getting now. It's really popped out everything that we want to detail on. So I'm happy with that. So I'll click that hamburger again, merge visible. Now we're ready to go ahead and get it ready for laser engraving. So image adjustment, invert, so that since we're doing this on glass, we want the dark areas to engrave white basically on the glass. So this just reverses the image. And then I'm going to go to image rotation, and flip my canvas horizontally because we're going to engrave this in the back of the coaster we're going to engrave it on. Final thing I'll do is image canvas size. And I'll set this up to the size of one of my coasters. So 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Now I can resize that graphic so it's positioned how I want on the coaster. We're ready to print that to the laser. So Photoshop isn't really a layout software. So instead, I'm just going to take this and drag it to the top corner. And that's with my Epilog engraver selected, and hit print. So now that my image is over in the laser dashboard, I'm going to choose my settings. So I'll import my glass settings. Now for a photo engraving, I like on an 80 watt, about 300 DPI regardless of the wattage. Speed is at 70, power is 100. I like that to go quite a bit faster on a photo. So I'm going to take that all the way up to 100%. I'll choose Stucky as my dithering pattern and bottom up engraving and print that over the laser. Now, if I'm happy with those settings, I can actually export these settings, put it in the glass folder, and I'll just call it photo engraving. And that way, that'll be available the next time I want to do a photo engraving.
So there's our final engraving. Now, like I said, glass engraving in photos is very difficult, and that is pretty phenomenal. It looks really beautiful.
So thanks for joining us today. I hope you found these tips and tricks helpful. I know I enjoyed bringing them to you. I know a lot of you are already doing glass engraving, and you probably have your own methods that work well for you as well. Definitely share those. As a community in lasers, we all learn from each other and just get better at engraving from that. If you're not currently doing your own laser engraving and you want to get into glass engraving, I suggest you set up a demonstration of different machines. What you want to do is bring in your own glass and your own file so you can compare apples to apples across the board. There's a lot of differences in dwell time and speed and power output, especially between RF and glass laser tubes, that will make a big difference in the quality you're going to get, especially consistent quality across your glass engraving. So definitely check that out. So again, thanks for joining us, and please get in touch with us if you want more information about Epilog, and I hope you join me again.